You're being ridiculous, Emily. And you're being selfish again, Nora. The argument began like most of their fights did, sharp words tossed like knives in the kitchen of their childhood home. The scent of roasted chicken still lingered in the air, clashing with the rising tension between the Stevens sisters. The walls, painted in fading pastels, had borne witness to years of shouting matches and slammed doors. But this felt different, heavier. Nora stood at the counter, arms crossed over her chest, her polished nails tapping against the marble surface with impatient rhythm. Her children, Max and Lila, were in the adjacent room, watching cartoons, blissfully unaware of the gathering storm between their mother and their aunt. You live here. You're not doing anything important for the next 2 weeks. What's the big deal? Nora snapped, her voice edged with that familiar tone, commanding, dismissive. Emily stood her ground, arms folded tightly across her faded hoodie, eyes flashing. Not doing anything important? I have a part-time job, classes, a research paper due, and, oh right, a life, Nora. Just because I'm not a mother doesn't mean my time is free for you to use like a babysitting service. Nora scoffed, pushing her caramel-colored hair behind one ear. Mom and Dad already agreed to help if you couldn't handle it. Honestly, it's 2 kids, not a war zone. Emily laughed, but it came out bitter. Easy for you to say. You get to play house in their guest room, contribute nothing to the bills, and still expect everyone to cater to your needs. You're 32, Nora. When were you planning to grow up? A sharp silence fell between them. Even the cartoon sounds from the next room seemed to dull under the weight of Emily's words. Nora's jaw tightened, but she didn't reply. She grabbed her keys from the counter and muttered, I leave Friday. Figure it out. The house had always been too small for 3 generations, but necessity and Nora's crumbling marriage had forced her and her kids back into the home she once fled from. Her parents, doting and forgiving, welcomed her with open arms. Emily, however, had watched the return like a storm rolling in. As children, the sisters had been close, climbing trees in the backyard, whispering secrets under bedspreads, stealing cookies together, and swearing mutual silence. But things shifted when Nora hit adolescence. She became the golden child, the high school cheerleader, the prom queen, the one with boyfriends and scholarships. Emily, quieter, more academic, faded into her sister's shadow. Now, years later, Emily was clawing her way through college on scholarship and student loans, while Nora's life appeared to be a revolving door of crises everyone else had to manage. Friday morning, suitcases lined the hallway, and Nora's kids were bouncing in excitement, their tiny hands dragging stuffed animals and coloring books. Emily stood by the front door, arms crossed, watching the whirlwind unfold like an unwilling guest at someone else's party. You have the schedule, right? Lila takes a nap at 1, Max hates peas, and no screen time after 8. Nora rattled off instructions like a military drill sergeant. Emily blinked slowly. I'm not a moron. Their mother tried to ease the tension. Girls, please, Nora, thank your sister. Em, we appreciate you helping out. Nora bent down to kiss her children. Be good for Auntie Em, okay? Mommy will be back soon. And then she was gone, the front door clicking shut behind her like a final punctuation mark. The week that followed, chaos. That was the only word Emily could use to describe it. Max broke a picture frame chasing Lila with a toy sword. Lila cried for her mother every night. The dog peed on her laptop charger. And somehow, Emily still had to finish a 10-page philosophy paper and work her Saturday shift at the bookstore. Each evening ended with her sprawled on the couch, drained and resentful. Her parents helped, but their version of help meant letting the kids eat chocolate after dinner and fall asleep in front of the TV. Any attempt by Emily to enforce Nora's rules was met with resistance from the kids and her parents. She's too strict, her mother whispered behind her back. By the third night, Emily cracked. She texted Nora, next time you decide to dump your problems on me, ask first. I'm not your free nanny. The reply came hours later. Excuse me for thinking family helps each other. Maybe don't live here if you don't want to be part of the family. That night, Emily cried. Not from the stress, but from the sting of always being the afterthought, the helper, the support beam in everyone else's story. Nora returns. When Nora walked through the front door a week later, sun-kissed and smiling, she was met with silence. Her kids ran to her, giggling and clinging. Emily stood behind them, arms folded, eyes unreadable. "Looks like you survived," Nora said lightly, trying to brush the tension away with humor. Emily didn't smile. Barely. They talked later that evening, after the kids were asleep and their parents were in bed. The kitchen light buzzed softly, and the air between them was thick with unsaid things. "I know I ask a lot of you," Nora began, staring at the rim of her teacup. "But I'm tired, Em. I'm just tired. And sometimes I forget you're tired too." Emily exhaled. It wasn't an apology, not quite, but it was the closest she'd ever heard from Nora. "I want to help you. I do. But not like this. Not when you expect it. Not when you treat me like a backup plan instead of a person." The silence that followed wasn't angry, it was thoughtful. "I'll figure things out," Nora said softly. "The kids and I will look for our own place soon. I promise." And somehow, in that kitchen of their childhood, they sat for a while, not as rivals, but as women scarred by their own battles, finally seeing each other not through the lens of expectations, but through the mirror of shared exhaustion. In time, Nora moved out. Emily graduated. The tension between them never fully disappeared, but it shifted, softened. They learned slowly that sibling rivalry wasn't about hatred or resentment. It was about space, emotional, physical, and psychological. And the willingness to let each other grow into something more than what they had always been told they were. The bonds they broke in anger were, in time, reforged. Not perfectly, but stronger than before. Because sometimes love isn't in the helping, it's in the choosing to see each other clearly and still staying.